So let me start the show today and bring in Kelly Ernst and Trevor McElhaney from Western States Arts Federation. Kelly and Trevor, welcome. There you go. Hey there.
Hi, Michael.
It's magic. It's magic. And I need to say at the front end, our wonderful producer, Alex Dolvin, who has been with us every Friday and has done an amazing job with our back-end logistics and keeping the show working. Alex is not with us today. And in our pre-show, Kelly was a savior, making sure that everybody's camera worked and all that great stuff. So thank you, Kelly, for pitching in and helping make things work.
Of course.
And just a logistics note for those of you who follow the show, Alex normally is the person doing the amazing job putting all the relevant links in chat. That will be me today. So I will be talking to our guests, I will be fielding questions, and I'll be putting things in chat. So if things get a little rocky, that's because we don't have our producer, but then we'll get through it. We'll soldier through. So anyway, Trevor and Kelly, thank you again for joining us. Let's just, for starters, I think many folks participating in today's meeting know all too well what WESTAF is all about. But for those who are new to the conversation and haven't had a chance to work with you, tell us a little bit about Western States Arts Federation and what you do there.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Michael, for having us. It's really exciting to be here and be talking with everyone. Briefly, the Western States Arts Federation is a regional arts organization. It is the mission of WESTAF to promote arts advocacy, specifically in the West. We have other counterparts that are doing this work as well in other regions, but we're specifically focusing on the Western regions, the 13 Western states. Trevor and I specifically work for a data tool called the Creative Vitality Suite. It is one of many technology products that WESTAF operates. Creative Vitality Suite is a data collection tool, and we are not Western specific. We look at the entire United States collectively, and we analyze the creative economies. We look at labor market data to understand what's really going on in our creative communities across the board. I'm the business coordinator for WESTAF, for CV Suite, and then Trevor here is our data analyst. So he's the one who has all of the data answers and can help people understand really what they have and how to connect the dots, so to speak, how to develop the stories. That is, as everyone I'm sure knows, is all too important for the advocacy work that we're all engaged with.
Well, I really am excited for you to share some of the work that you've been doing. And I think it, to build on what we were saying just a few minutes ago, one of the sort of structural challenges with music or cultural advocacy is that we all tend to go by our gut. There's a very natural sort of inclination to sort of feel like things are happening. So maybe artists are touring a lot more, making money off that, or maybe the royalties are bad from Spotify, or maybe, and it's been a structural challenge in this work going back 25 years to be able to actually put numbers behind it that are meaningful numbers, and there's a secondary challenge, or just because you have numbers behind something that may not tell the story you actually think it tells. So there's a whole complexity to, how we access data and how we use data. But you guys have released something fun this week that we really enjoyed. Could you tell us a little bit about what you announced or what you reported on?
Sure thing. So over the course of this last year, we have been working on a campaign that we're very, very excited of and very, very proud of. It's called the Creative Vitality List. So what we're doing is putting together lists highlighting the vibrancy of creative communities across the United States. Every list, with each release of the list, we have a different theme, so to speak. The first iteration of our list, the first ever list, which was released in last spring, we looked at the general creative concentration of regions across the US. We recently launched our second list. We launched it on Wednesday. And this is a list that is highlighting music cities and small music economies across the US. We focused on, and my data analyst Trevor can really help us dive through the data, but we focused on small cities, or rather less than 500,000 people. And we focused on a concentration of musicians, singers, related workers to see really what's going on in these regions.
So I would love for you to walk us through this and maybe share screen and kind of just give us a, let's see who are some of the cities that you held up. I think one of the things I do want to emphasize um, before we go through the list, I mean, first of all, I think we all know that lists are silly, right? And lists are fun because it's a great way to frame conversations and all this. But something that I think we really valued in terms of this list is, for most of us, the point of the Music Cities conversation is for every city to understand what does it mean to be the best version of themselves. And that can be a big city, that can be a small community, that can be everything in between. And I think what our audience is going to see in a minute here as you kind of walk us through this is really neat examples of communities that you wouldn't necessarily associate if you didn't know them or hadn't thought about them as really emphasizing the role of music in their life and in their and the whole sort of community of anyway in their community. So I'll stop there. So anyway, do you want to share screen and walk us through this a little bit?
Absolutely. I can absolutely do that. Thank you for saying that, Michael. We really believe over here that, and the point, the list is a light, casual, fun thing to do, but we really believe that what it shows is that every region, every city, no matter how big or small, does have a unique story to share. And exactly. The data absolutely can support that story. And that's what we want to really exhibit with these lists. So with that said, let me share my screen and I will bring you guys to our Creative Vitality list, the top 10 music cities that you need to know about.
And while you're doing that,
all right.
Kind of
does everyone follow? Does everyone see?
And folks, if you have questions, please feel free to use the Q&A window or potentially the chat window. Either one is fine. And I'm happy to get to as many questions as we can in this segment. And I know Kelly and Trevor are excited to follow up after the show. We'll have contact information when they're done talking about this. All right, so let's see the 10 music cities we need to know about.
All right, now I'm kind of debating in my head. Do we want to tell you what the number one city is, or do we want to talk you through the data methodology first?
Real quick to methodology.
Okay, great. So I will actually bring it over to Trevor, our data analyst for CV Suite, and he can talk about exactly how we decided what makes a music city. As you can see, I'm just scrolling through our campaign site. So yeah, what makes a music city? And I will dive into the data right now. Trevor, I will let you take over.
Can you hear me first?
Well, Kelly, while Trevor's getting that going, so the CV Suite product or platform is probably more of a platform is something that's mostly used by arts councils, some cities, some counties. Like, who are typical users who would be partnering with WESTAF on deploying this research locally?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go, Trevor.
There we go. I think the mic on my other headphones are messed up, but okay. So to just kind of start with the methodology behind the data, first and foremost, to put it in kind of context, like we've been talking about, we definitely wanted to put something together that was digestible and super easy to follow. It's all about having fun, and to Kelly's point, drawing, highlighting regions and areas and musical communities that normally don't get a ton of attention. And that's really the context in how we built the list. That being said, the specific way that we did it was looking at location quotient of very specific occupation, which is the musicians, singers, and related workers. Again, you could build this list multiple different ways, but what we found through research is just that this is a way of looking at the concentration of workers in a way that does highlight the regions that don't typically get looked at. On the website, as you can see, you can kind of more thoroughly go through our methodology. I don't want to get too in the weeds about it. Or again, I'm sure our contact information is in there. And if anyone wants to know more, you can definitely reach out to me. I'm more than happy to geek out on numbers and statistics and methodologies behind numbers. So feel free, anyone, to do that. The other thing that we did do is pare down the 926 CBSAs to ones that are less than 500,000. Again, try to limit it's like we all know that places like Seattle, LA, are even Austin are big music cities, and we really wanted to highlight those areas that again are a little bit more rural, or the workers there may not necessarily get the attention that other places do. So Kelly, on that, I'll let you continue kind of the big drum roll of who's on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all the data analysis that we did, we came up, as Trevor said, with this music location quotient. There's a few maps and graphs as a part of this campaign that can really help, that actually highlights what the actual data is for each creative town. You can see Flagstaff, Arizona. We have data on them. We've got Casper, Wyoming. Their music location, they're ranked 311 out of 817. So there's a lot of fun visuals to play with as well if you're curious about your own regions. All right, so our our 10th city, the city that came in 10th, I'm going backward. So
there you go.
I'm giving you a little snapshot. We had Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Pittsfield actually is a town that has now ranked twice on our lists. The first time, as I mentioned earlier, we had a list highlighting the general creative vitality of a region. We came up with an index. It's actually something that we use frequently in our work. We call it the Creative Vitality Index. We used those to see what the top 30 cities were, and Pittsfield actually made an appearance on that list. We have Lawrence, Kansas. I'm not sure if you guys, here we go. We have Lawrence, Kansas. They came up as number 9 with a music location of 1.75. Again, really exciting to see some of these smaller regions popping up. And for us, it was really exciting to work with the towns and work with the arts communities in those places to kind of see exactly why they landed on the list. Another thing that we're always talking about and promoting in CV Suite is that everyone has a music story. And Michael, I love how you said this. Any city can be an art city, and every city has creativity. It's just about understanding the data and understanding what's going on the ground. So we had a really good time collecting information on some of these amazing festivals, amazing concert series that these small cities are doing. Reducium, New Mexico ranked number 8 for us. We actually had a fun time seeing that New Mexico they ranked 3 cities on the list of 10. So 3 of 10 were at our top music location quotient, which was, in my opinion, a great reason when all of this is over to check out what New Mexico is doing musically. And this is also something that we hope that these lists can show, is that, this idea of slow tourism in a way where it's not about going to the big Austins, the Nashvilles, although those places are great. It's about going to these smaller regions and really checking out what's happening there. So New Mexico, put it on your list, everyone. Put it on your list. Oak Harbor, Washington came in 7th. Their music LQ was 1.85, and followed by Hudson, New York, which is 2.03. Hudson, New York has a lot of activity. We've been hearing about them quite a bit, so it's exciting to see them on the list as well. I will save the middle regions so you guys can actually find them out yourself, and I will skip all the way down to number 1. In place was Branson, Missouri. Branson, Missouri had the highest music location quotient of 3.14, which made them first in our list. So if anyone's from Branson in this chat, please make yourself known. If you have any kind of plug, now would be the time. But again, we had such a good time researching these cities, connecting with people who are working in them, working for these organizations that are doing great music work, and kind of just figuring out what's happening there. So that is the big reveal. That is number 1.
That's great.
On the vitality list.
I love it. Kelly and Trevor, that's so fun. And thanks for putting the data sources in the chat. And let's speak to Stacey Frazier's got a great question where she asked basically that regions with vibrant creative output in one field also excel in others is something that you say on your website. And she'd love to know, and we love to know kind of like, how do you, like, what sources do you draw from to kind of substantiate the statement, especially kind of the cross sector or the cross discipline kind of linkages in music communities.
Absolutely. Trevor, do you want to take this question?
Yeah, I'll take that. So I actually, to her question, I did just post our major data sources. And what you'll see there is CV Suite, we focus specifically on labor force and economic data, which is, different than some other people. We don't really rely too heavily on things like survey data. So that's that's kind of our perspective on things. It's not the full story, but it's one that we try to tell just because of consistency and some other factors. That being said, as you can see, we do a lot with BEA, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the census, IRS data, and through that we compile it all into essentially one number. That's the location quotient, and then that's going to compare things like jobs within a region as a concentration versus other larger regions. In this instance, it's versus the United States as a whole. Again, I could definitely go more into detail on how that's all done, but hopefully that kind of answers your question as far as what our sources are.
That's great. No, Trevor, I think that's fantastic. And, I think the, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on today, other than just really getting a kick out of the release around the 10 cities and our longstanding admiration for WESTAF is, this conversation fits into, again, as we're all getting ready for 2021 and the future, I think one of the most important conversations that's happening in the field is how do we rethink data? And to a large extent, we've had an evolution in the music field over the last 20 years. Again, like I said before, starting with not a lot of quantitative data collection and then sort of new different models. And there's been, kind of survey-based models or census-based models or CV Suite or other ways of sort of looking at, how do you slice and dice and understand music in all of its complexity. And I think where it feels like it's moving in the next couple of years. And again, some of this is pending. I mean, again, none of these issues are political. These issues are political only in the context of the people in power being interested to engage in these conversations and in this work. And I think, one of the challenges that I would imagine Trevor and Kelly and your whole team has kind of dealt with in the beginning is that, again, you're being reactive because you're dealing with federal coding and federal data as they're pushing things out. And what we are all interested in, we've had a lot of conversations on this program about this and others, is how do we sort of challenge in a collaborative way, how do we challenge the sort of data keeping to have a better reflection of the complexity of the artistic experience? Musicians are often not captured in labor data. People who are music advocates are almost never captured in labor data. These things typically aren't jobs. The work that I do is not a job, right? I mean, I spend a lot of my time working on music, but that doesn't get reflected in sort of labor or taxes or things like that. And so we're really excited about, again, coming out of the nightmare of 2020, one of the major sort of tangible things that we're excited about as an organization and as a community is what does that conversation look like to be able to, again, to go to all the different, sort of agencies where there also is, I think one of the understood, one of the less understood trends in Washington that has happened over the last decade certainly is much more of an embracing of evidence-based policymaking. And there was a commission that Congress created, a commission on evidence-based policymaking that has led to a number of tangible initiatives to really rethink data and data access and data collection and sort of how we do all this stuff. And so I think that there's some dots that we're excited to connect between, again, the success of Save Our Stages and the importance of the cultural sector and the intersection of federal policy and culture with the data and all these other pieces. So we're thrilled, to have you join us today. Excited for the report that you all have put out. I know a lot of people, again, who follow our work have had great success working with CV Suite and understanding these tools. And I know folks will be excited to kind of follow up with you and just learn more about what you guys are offering and kind of where we're collectively taking this work as we move forward.
Absolutely. And thank you again, Michael, for having us. Again, this is a conversation that we're so excited to be on. Just to reiterate what you said, as we move forward trying to understand evidence-based policymaking, it is so exciting for us as a data tool to be working with people to help understand truly the data strategy and data education. So often it's a scary thing. And we really want to make sure that people know that, in fact, it's just about learning. It's just about knowing where to look and knowing how to tell the story and knowing that different sources can come in together to create this big, broad picture. It really can be impactful, and there's a way to do it, and there's a way to work together so that everyone involved in this advocacy work truly understands the data. So that's what we're here for.
Kelly and Trevor, thank you so much for joining us, and give our best regards to your WESTAF colleagues, and we're excited to keep working with you. I know I see at least another question in the chat. Trevor, if you can, or Kelly, just answer some, if there are any additional questions in the chat, and just make sure your contact information is in there. That would be awesome.
Yeah, we'll stick on to the session, so we'll be answering.
I'm answering that right now. So, all right, bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.